Hey guys, I'm Reagan.
And I'm Ryan, and we're the co-founders of Vaer watches. Today we're going to be walking you through the upcoming release of the version 2 of our G5 GMT line. At Vaer, it's no secret that continuous improvement of our products is at the core of our philosophy. Our version 2 G5 is the result of countless refinements over the past years. From a distance, the line may appear to be the same as our original G5, but up close, it is a completely transformed watch.
We started Vaer with the goal of building durable tool watches that could be worn in the most extreme outdoor environments. For that reason, our focus in the early days of our product design centered on features like real-world water resistance, loom performance, and on-wrist ergonomics. As we've progressed in recent years, our focus has expanded into more of the refinements and finishings that are hallmarks of the very best luxury watches on the market. Our goal for the second version of the G5 was to not only deliver the performance of the world's best GMTs, but also the same level of aesthetic refinements. For that reason, we've improved every aspect of this model. In addition to improving the case thickness and crystal type, we've added a whole new degree of focus on polish and detail work on the case back, dial, and hands. Before I go into more detail on all of these specific changes, Ryan's going to do a hands-on summary of the G5's technical features and breakdown of exactly how to operate the GMT. Then I'm going to wrap up the video with an overview of the design improvements and a higher level concept of exactly why we built this watch and why we're so excited about it. So without further ado, let's get into the specs and features.
Let's start off with the purpose of the GMT function on the watch. The term GMT references Greenwich Mean Time. This complication was originally built out of necessity when commercial air travel started back in the 1950s. In 1954, Pan Am was having an issue. Their pilots would take off in one time zone and land in another, causing jet lag confusion. As a solution, they approached Rolex and requested a watch that could track two time zones simultaneously. Original GMT watches were simply tools for pilots who needed to track the time zones of both their departure and destination locations. Nowadays, as we all know, it's incredibly common for people to travel across multiple time zones regularly. A GMT watch is a very useful tool for quickly checking your home time zone or the time zone of your travel destination at a glance. Additionally, if you have family, friends, or business partners in different time zones, a GMT watch allows you to easily check the time in their location, making communication much simpler. Our new GMT collection includes three distinct models: our G5 Green, G5 Steel, and G5 Navy and Black. Reagan will be doing a deep dive into each design later in the video, and I'm going to start off with the specs and features of the collection. For dimensions, we have a 39mm case and a 46mm lug-to-lug height. We found 39mm to be the Goldilocks size. Not too small, not too large, just right. One of our biggest improvements between G5 version 1 and version 2 is with thickness. We've shaved off over 2mm from the original G5, so the watch is much more compact and sits really nicely on the wrist. The thickness comes in at 11.8mm without crystal and 13mm with crystal. As with all of our watches, this collection has 20mm lugs, which means they're compatible with all rubber, nylon, and leather straps, though the bracelet fit is custom to the case. These cases will be cross-compatible with the bracelet fit on our D5, D7, and G2 39mm lines. In terms of crystal, we have a really fantastic improvement here. We've shifted from a double-domed crystal to a box-style sapphire crystal. This crystal type rises vertically from the case and then has a curved, perpendicular transition to the flat section on top. This shape offers the best of both worlds. You get a really great pop from the curved section along the outer rim of the crystal, but you also have the benefit of great legibility and lack of reflection in the center viewing area. Traditionally, boxed crystals were made from acrylic material, which was easy to shape and more affordable, but very prone to scratching. Despite higher costs, we've chosen to stick with the sapphire material for these crystals in order to ensure durability and scratch resistance. The watch case is made of 316L stainless steel and, as with all Vaer watches, has a screw-down crown. The water resistance on this G5 line is 200 meters. This level of water resistance, from our perspective, is completely sufficient for any human use in the ocean or any body of water. The watches are also backed by our 2-year waterproof warranty, so if you run into any water-related issues within warranty and your crown was sealed, we'll gladly replace the watch. The case shape incorporates our lyre or twisted lugs, which give the watches such a dynamic aesthetic relative to the blocky, simple lugs of most modern dive watches. In terms of case finishing, we have a brushed side case with polished highlights on the lugs. The crown is a moderate size that is easy to operate, but does not get in the way. All three watches have bi-directional 120-click ball-bearing bezels with 24-hour markers. The navy and black and green watches have a loomed ceramic bezel insert, and the steel version has, you guessed it, a steel bezel insert for an amazing vintage look. Flipping the watch over, we have a sapphire crystal exhibition caseback, and the text around the caseback is now embossed with a polished highlight for a really gorgeous finish. The G5 line houses the Japanese Miyota 9075. A really standout True GMT movement. True GMT movements are also known as Traveler's GMTs. The hour hand on a True GMT watch can independently be adjusted in 1 hour increments without stopping the time. Our USA assembly team also regulates each movement to 0 to plus 10 seconds per day. As with all of our watches, each G5 comes with 2 straps of your choice. The base strap for our G5 lineup is the incredibly popular FKM waffle strap. These straps are made from FKM rubber material. It's a strong, dense, silky rubber compound that is very comfortable and durable. In terms of secondary strap options, you can choose between each of our Recon Single Pass, Horween leather, 3-link bracelet, or Jubilee bracelet options. Our Horween leather straps are made right here in the USA from Horween hide. While we know that a leather strap on a dive watch is a bit unconventional, we love the look and we're pleased to give it as an option. Each of our premium 3-link and Jubilee bracelet options have quick release pins for fast installation and screw links for easy fitting. Now I'm going to give you a quick walkthrough of the operation of our G5 watch line. So starting off, you have that bi-directional bezel, as mentioned earlier, can be rotated either way. You then have your hour hand, minute hand, GMT hand, second hand, and date window. So to start operation, you can first unscrew the crown. Now that crown is screwed in for water resistance, so it's very important that you always screw it back in after any adjustments. Once the crown is unscrewed counterclockwise, you'll be in the 0 position. In this position, you can wind clockwise and it will wind the watch movement. Now the watch is equipped with an automatic movement, so when you wear it, the rotor will spin and charge up the watch. But if you're not wearing it and you want to give it a wind to get it going, you can do so. If you pop it out to the first position, the hour hand will rotate. And this is how you can adjust to local time, and I'll give you a quick walkthrough on that a little bit later. The hour hand also operates the date window. You'll see as I'm spinning it around, it shifted to the next date. So in order to adjust the date, you'll spin that hour hand around. There you go. Now the next position is our minute hand, GMT hand, and hour hand. So as you change minutes, it will adjust all of the above. So that's at a high level, basic operation of this watch. When you're done setting the time, you'll pop it back in, screw it in clockwise, and you're all good and ready to go. Now in terms of GMT operation, I'm going to run through a quick demo of a potential scenario. So in this case, I have our hour, minute, and GMT hands all at the 12 o'clock position. For the sake of our demo, we're going to say we're starting in Los Angeles local time. So at local time in Los Angeles, it's 12 midnight, and it's just become the 16th. Now, we're going to, for the sake of our demo, say we're traveling over to Tokyo, Japan, which is 16 hours ahead. To simplify things, we're going to teleport to Tokyo as to not have to do the math with flight time. So going 16 hours ahead, we want to change our hour hand to the local time in our destination. So you'll unscrew that crown counterclockwise, you'll pop it out to the first position, and you'll move that hour hand 16 hours ahead. So there's 12 hours, 13, 14, 15, 16 hours ahead. Now, we have our new local time, Tokyo, Japan, 4 p.m., and we have our departure city time, which is Los Angeles, still at midnight. And we're still on the 16th, 4 p.m. The date is the local time of Tokyo now, 4 p.m. on the 16th. Now to illustrate how this will operate as time progresses, I'll pop it out one more step and move that minute hand around the dial. And so you'll see as the minute hand goes around the dial, for every hour, we get a step of another hour on the 24-hour ring there. So for every hour of local time, an hour of GMT time. So now 5 p.m. and 1 a.m. around 6 p.m., 2 a.m., and so on. And so the great thing is you're tracking your departure destination, which was Los Angeles, on that 24-hour ring, and your local time on the primary hour and minute hands. And as we move around, you'll see that date starting to switch as we get to midnight in Tokyo. And so we just passed midnight in Tokyo. It's now the 17th in Tokyo, and we can see it's now just about 8 a.m. back in Los Angeles on that 24-hour time. So really, really nifty features, super useful for travel, and pretty easy to operate as well.
Now that Ryan's provided an overview of this watch's specs and features and demonstrated exactly how to operate the G5, I'm going to take some time to dive deeper into the design inspiration behind these new models and the specific aesthetic refinements we've made to elevate the overall look. For our initial launch, we're excited to be introducing 3 distinct versions of the Vaer G5 GMT, which are split into 2 distinct design categories. First, there's the G5 Meridian, our classic and time-tested GMT design, which is available in both a green and a black and navy version, which, if you prefer the pop culture names, might also be described as Hulk and Batman colorways. While premium loomed ceramic bezels and highly detailed dials place the Meridian clearly within the realm of contemporary luxury GMT watches, true to Vaer's ethos, there's also a strong influence from historical watchmaking. We particularly admire the original 38mm Rolex GMT Master reference 6542 from the 1950s, especially those rare features like glossy backlight bezels and lack of crown guards. Beyond just aesthetics, our deeper inspiration comes from the GMT Master's original purpose, a precision tool specifically crafted for pilots. We firmly believe our G5 Meridian continues this legacy, offering unmatched value in the modern market for a feature-rich analog True GMT watch. In addition to the classic Meridian design, our second generation G5 also introduces a brand new aesthetic interpretation of our GMT, which we're calling the Pacific. This release builds on the Pacific dive watch design we first introduced back in 2020, which was inspired by the Omega Seamaster 300 Big Triangle. The new G5 Pacific blends elements of the Big Triangle with one of the most iconic and interesting GMT watches in history, the Rolex Explorer 2, reference 1655. When it was first released in 1971, the Explorer 2 was intended for an ultra-specific niche audience of speleologists, which is a very Rolex way of saying cave explorers who needed a reliable method to distinguish between day and night in total darkness. Unlike the GMT Master, the 1655 Explorer 2 had a fixed bezel specifically so that you could keep track of whether it was 6 in the morning or 6 at night. This utility was tracked on a distinctive orange 24-hour hand, which collectors affectionately nicknamed the Freccione, which in Italian means both big arrow and show off. With such an eccentric core use case, the 1655 was never a particularly popular model, but eventually became a cult classic thanks to its bold design, comparative rarity, and supposed connection with Steve McQueen, even though there's little evidence he ever actually wore one. The G5 Pacific maintains many of the design cues of the 1655 while adding far more modern functionality. In addition to a slimmer case and the use of sapphire crystal instead of acrylic, the G5 Pacific also has a bi-directional bezel and, unlike the 1655, is also a Traveler GMT, making it a much more practical traveler's watch. In terms of deciding between the Pacific and the Meridian design, I think that really comes down to the use case. If you're a commercial pilot, the loom bezel of the Meridian is going to be a must-have feature. If you're a collector and already have a lot of GMTs, or just happen to love 1970s vintage aesthetics, then the distinctive charm of the Pacific is probably the watch for you. Alright, now that we've covered the design inspiration, I'm going to cover all of the specific little aesthetic refinements that we've integrated on this watch, and there's a lot of them, so I'm going to try to talk fast. In general, the finishing on the Vaer G5 represents the future of Vaer automatics and the direction in which we're taking the overall product design for our brand. We've studied dozens of watches in the $3,000 to $10,000 price range, and this watch represents our implementation of those learnings. If I were to synthesize our progress in a single sentence, it would be learning to love polishing. Small detail work that doesn't show up on a spec sheet is where we've made the greatest leaps from the first generation G5. On the hands, we've implemented a multi-directional angled finish, mixing the type of polish and brush combination made famous by brands like Grand Seiko. The index lume trays are also now finished in high polish, giving the watch infinitely more play in different lighting conditions. Moving outward, the sapphire crystal is now a ledge-style construction, which we feel is the perfect balance between easy legibility and beautiful play from different angles. The bezel sizing has been refined and sloped, and we've upgraded the bezel grip to be both lower profile while also being more ergonomic and easy to grip. In terms of bezel action, we've implemented a 3-ball bearing system with a medium level of tension that's hard to move accidentally while still being easy to adjust in cold water or while wearing gloves. On the crown, the 24-point star pattern is now finished with an embossed Vaer logo detail, which is a level of finishing we've also extended to the case back, which balances a beautiful contrast between deep etching and a high polished angled edge. The Miyota 9075 movement also now features an etched and painted Vaer logo on the rotor. Taken individually, each one of these details is an important step forward. Collectively, they combine into a watch that holds its own with the very best aesthetic finishing available in the sub $1,000 range. As much as the G5 looks fantastic in photos, it's even more compelling in person, and we're excited to integrate many of these improvements and changes across the rest of the Vaer lineup.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop them in the comments or reach out to us at vaerwatches.com.